era. Now to know about George Washington, what we need to know, how did he got elected? So he was actually not elected, it was the people who wanted to become the president. As majority people wanted, he became the president. Personally, he didn't want to become the president at all. It was people who made him the president, right? So it was the people who made him the president. So to study George Washington's era, we need to go over three stuff. The new government takes shape. That is subdivided, like every topic are subdivided. First is new government takes shape. Second is Jefferson-Hamilton debate. Third is political parties and rebellion. Now, before starting any of this topic, again revise that, get to the basic knowledge. First president, so he did not had prior examples. So he wanted upcoming presidents to get some knowledge to know how to deal with the problems. So what he did, he wanted to add some blueprints in the constitution, so for governing the nation, because the constitution during that time didn't include that. So first thing what he wanted to do was to establish a proper judiciary system and a proper executive branch. Now to properly establish a judiciary system, what he did pass the Judiciary Act of 1789, which included four parts, right? First part is 3 federal circuit courts, second 13 federal district courts. Now this the number is not perfect, it kept on changing as the years got changing, right? Now these courts were headed by a Supreme Court. So these courts were headed by a Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court consisted of one Chief Justice, and 5 associate judges, right? Chief Justice and 5 associate judges. That's the stuff you need to know for Judiciary Act of 1789, right? 3 federal circuit courts, 13 federal district courts. These courts were headed by Supreme Court, and Supreme Court consisted of 1 Chief Justice and 5 associate judges, right? Now moving over to the executive branch. Now executive branch was even not well established, because executive branch during that time just had, you could say, just president, and a vice president. Now as we all know, the president was George Washington and the vice president was John Adams, and these two people are not enough to make good things. Like things means not, they were not able to make good laws. So two people not enough. So what George Washington did was he established Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday. What? Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday? It sounds weird, but it's a trick to remember. So Tuesday stands for Treasury, right? Wednesday stands for War, and Saturday stands for State. And you need to just add D in front of them. That is department, right? Department, right? I'm not writing whole spelling, right? Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and you need to add D in front of them. That is department. So Department of Treasury, Department of War, Department of State. Now all these departments had a secretary. Now secretary for Treasury was Alexander Hamilton. For War, it was Henry Knox. For State, it was Thomas Jefferson. Now one thing you may notice is Jefferson, right? Hamilton, Jefferson. So that's what we are going to study here. But present, just focus over here. Now how to remember that stuff. So you could go with AT. That means apple tree. That is Alexander Hamilton and Treasury. Not apple tree, but you can remember that. AT stands for apple tree. That is Alexander Hamilton and Treasury. So Alexander Hamilton was Secretary of Treasury. Now going for HW, that is homework, right? So it's Henry Knox and War. Going more detail, that is TNS, right? So TNS could be Toy Story. That is Thomas Jefferson for State, Secretary of State. That's the way you could remember that. Now, moreover, establishing Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, that is Treasury, War and Secretary, Department of Treasury, War and Secretary. What he did was he established a cabinet, right? He established a cabinet. What is a cabinet? That means the chief advisors of the president. Chief advisors of the presidents were cabinet. Now, who were chief advisors? So the head of each department, right? Whole Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday. So as many departments are there, the number of heads would be there. So that number of heads would act as chief advisor. That is, they will be in the cabinet. For example, for instance, you could take that there are 20 departments, right? So there will be 20 heads. So the 20 heads would be the chief advisor. So cabinet would include the 20 members, right? So just head of the state. So here we are done with the executive branch and executive branch and judiciary stuff. So we are done with the stuff. New government takes shape. Now, as you studied, right? We can Hamilton and Jefferson, right? Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, right? That treasury stuff, the Secretary of Treasury, and he was the Secretary of State. Now, they were the chief advisors of George Washington. Now, what the problem was, they both had the diverging view. They both had diverging view. This indicates like how much diverse they were. So let's talk about Alexander Hamilton. And here we'll be talking about Thomas Jefferson. Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson. Now, they had different views on what? So they had different views on the stuff that how the country should be given. So he was pro-British. He wanted the America, the United States, the young nation, to follow the same stuff as the British people did. That is, the Britain did. And he was pro-French. He was pro-French, right? So he was like, no, we should follow French. They helped us for getting independence, so we should deal with French people. We should adopt their way of living. We should adopt everything about French. So that was the first point of debate: pro-British, pro-French. He wanted now we can say he wanted more agriculture. He wanted more agriculture. Thomas Jefferson wanted more agriculture, and he wanted more, you can say, trading stuff. Trading, that is, you can say, industrializing. And most major thing what he wanted was, you could say that he was a good economist, right? So he wanted the strict constitution. Wait, no, I'm wrong, sorry. He wanted to pay off the debts first. Pay off the debts. Right? And he was like, we should think over it. Think over it. Right? So they had more things to do. Not just 3, but they had more. He wanted loose interpretation of Constitution. Loose interpretation of Constitution. But he wanted the strict interpretation of Constitution. Constitution. Right? So you could say, like, if he says the sky is blue, we would be, no, the sky is green. So it was such diverse things, like totally opposite. They were like just opposite, totally opposite. You could see their ideas. French, British, French, totally 100% opposite. So that resulted into the great conflict. So, like, for this stuff, that stuff, I'm wrong, because you could say it was, he wanted to take the debt over the country. He wanted the national debt he wanted debt to be taken as national and paid. But he was like, states should pay up their individual debts. So 100% opposite. So that was, we could say, the conflict stuff or the debate stuff. That's what the debate was. right? Now that's not we are actually studying, but it was like if one says the sky is blue, the other would be saying the sky is green. So it was that difference between them. Now now we'll be like, why are we discussing this? So it is because like they were the chief advisors of the George Washington, so they could create a problem like which side to follow. George Washington is like, wait, I should go for agriculture stuff or should I go for industrialization? They left like George Washington dumbstruck. Now for depth, what Hamilton thought was we should. Hamilton created an economic plan, right? He was like he was the Secretary of Treasury, right? So he was dealing with the financial matters. So he created his economic plan, right? So economic plan, Hamilton's economic plan, right? So that is one of the things we need to discuss. So we discuss the conflict between the ideas, right? So we discussed the conflict between them. Second was the Hamilton's economic plan. What was his economic plan? So he surveyed over, he analyzes the debt, and he was like, the states were responsible for 1/3 debt, right? So he wanted what was his main thing to was the main thing he wanted to do was the federal government to take over the state debt and make it a national debt. So if you are in a debt, I'm in a debt, I'll be like, give your debt to me, I'll pay your debt. You'll be, yeah, that's pretty much cool, right? Because states were already like in the 1/3 debt. So it's cool, right? I'm taking your debt, I'll pay it. But for how would you pay that? So for that you need to you need to impose the taxes because the national government wanted the money, right? So we'll study the tax stuff later on, but like this was the major stuff. Like he wanted the federal government to take over the state debt, and we'll be like, people agreed to it. No, people didn't agree to it because like the southern states already had already paid most of their debt, so it was a problem for them. How could we, like, if you have already paid your debt, like if I owe your debt, it's of no use, right? So southern became angry, and Thomas Jefferson, right? Hamilton, Jefferson, totally opposite. So Jefferson was a southern was belonging from southern state, so he was like, wait, we cannot do that, we already paid that, and it again resulted in a big conflict between them. So what should they do, right? And he was so this stuff, his economic stuff was still like left over. It was not passed because of Jefferson, and he declared that it was not in the Constitution, so you could not do that. As he is a strict follower, Jefferson is a strict follower. He was like, that's not in the Constitution, so you could not do that. Second thing, so this was still not imposed. Second thing was what was there in Hamilton's economic plan was to make a national bank, right? Make a national bank, right? He wanted this. He wanted to make a national bank because he got influenced by the Britain, right? Britain made their first national bank in 17th century. So he got like influenced by those people, and he was like, let's make a national bank. And like George Washington literally asked him, why do you want to make a national bank? So he was like, if we make a national bank, it would be like the states would be having a common currency, right? So it wouldn't be like creating the conflict. Wait, you need to buy the stuff from my country, my state, so you need to change the money like we do today. Like if you want to buy something from, you can say, the Europe stuff, then you have to convert some into the euros and something like that. But like in America during that time, it was like what states used to do. The states had different money. So if you want to buy so you are living in New Jersey and you want to buy something in Virginia, you need to convert your money into Virginian currency and you need to buy that. So what Hamilton wanted to create a national bank. So if there is a national bank, there will be common currency. So that stuff would be like converting the money, that stuff would be gone. So that's the reason why he wanted the national bank, making everything simple and clear, making everything simple and clear. That's why he wanted a national bank. So again, Thomas Jefferson, like dropped in, and he was like, no, you can't do that. That's unconstitutional. No, no, I don't allow you to do that. That's unconstitutional. So again, the debate continues, right? We are talking about, so debate continues, and George Washington still like sitting dumbstruck. Wait, should I do this or should I do this? Like people were, oh, what to do? Confused. George Washington confused. Oh, what to do? Moreover, like Hamilton wanted that stuff to pass it. Why be passed? You'll be like, wait, we think that that's good stuff, right? Taking over the debt, national bank, that's good stuff. You should do it. Why this guy Jefferson is coming in between and stopping that stuff? It's good. You should do that, right? So even Hamilton wanted that stuff. So what Hamilton did was good. What did he do? You are saying good. So for passing that stuff of national bank, right? National bank. He wanted to pass the stuff of national bank, right? National bank. He wanted the Bank of United States, BUS. You could remember BUS, Bank of United States, right? So what he did was he told the southern states. He told that we'll move the capital of United States to District of Columbia, that is like near the Potomac River. We'll move that to over there. So Thomas Jefferson thought like, wait, we need some attraction for these southern states. So if the capital of the country moves over there, then it would be good. So by hearing that, Thomas Jefferson agreed to that, and he was like, okay, move the capital to like District of Columbia, and we'll agree to that. So in Congress, the bill was being signed for national bank, and then later on Congress ordered to build District of Columbia as the capital and start its construction. That was what that is the stuff that was started, right? So that was the stuff which was started on. Okay, so you'll be like, what was the capital before District of Columbia? So it was switching capitals. First it was New York, and then Philadelphia, or I'm not sure, but it was Philadelphia and New York. To stop, Philadelphia and New York, and it was in the north. So if I explained you, if it moves in the south, what benefits the southern states had. So basically, BUS, Bank of United States, was being passed on. That stuff was being passed on. That's it for Hamilton and Jefferson debate, how they were debated, right? And that's the history how Washington DC became the capital of United States. Now moving over to the last topic. What is our last topic? Political parties and rebellion. And I think you had a rough idea now how it got divided, like how the political parties came in, right? So quick intro. Hamilton had different ideas. Jefferson had different ideas. So people having different ideas, one going this way, one going this way. So people having different ideas, different point of views. So these were the people responsible for creating the political parties, right? So political parties was created because this debate, different views of Hamilton, different views of Jefferson. So because of this debate, political parties came in. So to understand that stuff, we need to go over the stuff. We need to understand what was the name of the political party of Hamilton, and what was the political party for the Jefferson. So for that, we need to go over Federalist, and so there were two political parties. So one was Federalists, and the other one was Democratic Republicans. Be sure, Democratic Republican is not today's Republican Party. That is different, right? So Federalist was for Hamilton, right? Hamiltonians, they were known as Hamiltonians, right? That is known as Hamiltonians. So Federalists, Hamiltonians, Democratic, Republican, Jeffersonians, right? That were two political parties, and what you'll be like, what were the ideas? So ideas were the same as what Federalists had, the same idea as Hamilton had. Democratic Republicans had the same idea that Jefferson had. So pretty much same, right? Pretty much same. That's it for political parties you need to know, right? Federalist, Democratic, Republicans, both different. Like it was, so one basic thing you need to know: they were pro-French, pro-British, pro-British, pro-French. Just remember that. That's it. That's it for political parties and political parties. Now we are moving over to the rebellion stuff, right? We are moving over to the rebellion stuff, and it was like as I mentioned before, that the national debt was to be taken, the state debt was to be taken over by the federal government. So it was basically a national debt which United States needed to pay. That's it. That's what needed. So for getting money, what should you do? Imply big taxes, right? Large taxes. So during that time, the people used to drink whiskey the more. So what Hamilton like told George Washington, that like we could imply taxes on whiskey. As people drink more whiskey, what will happen? It will be basically like people taking whiskey will pay taxes, right? Drinking whiskey, paying taxes, it will provide some things for us. But that's what we'll talk later. But like rebellion started with taxes, imply of taxes. One common thing, American Revolution also started with taxes. Right? Stamp Act, Intolerable Act, like that, taxes, right? No, I'm not caring about that, but that is the similarity. Rebellion started because of taxes. Like, why just 2 arrows? So that's one for excise tax. One is for excise tax, and other is for tariff. Right? One is for excise tax, and one is for tariff, or you could say protective tariff. Protective tariff. Right? Tariffs or protective tariffs. Okay, so you'll be like, what is excise tax and what is protective? What is excise tax and what is protective tariff? The protective tariff was the tax which was imposed on the materials coming from the outside the nation. So because like it hired the tax, right? So if people bought them, they need to pay taxes, or so that's the first reason, right? To get money for federal government. Second reason why protective tariff was been implied was because they wanted, you could say, the government wanted the people to buy the goods manufactured in United States itself, right? The people wanted that, the government wanted that stuff. 2 reasons: to get money and good. They wanted the people to buy the goods manufactured in United States of America. So you'll be like, what is excise tax? So excise tax or excise tax, you could say, was basically that was for the sale. That excise tax is for, you could say, like I produce some material. So like I produce that stuff, right? So you're buying that. So like I'm manufacturing that, so I need to pay excise tax because I'm manufacturing that. You are taking that, so you need to pay the tax for that. So that's what excise tax was for. That's for excise tax, right? To get the money manufactured in the country itself, and that was the tax on the things which were imposed in that were imported. That's the stuff. That's it for protective tariff and excise tax. Now you could go over in more detailed stuff, like talking about whiskey rebellion, right? We're talking about rebellion. So it was basically rebellion by the farmers. So you could say whiskey rebellion was the rebellion by the farmers. You'll be like, why would farmers rebel? So it was like, you know, right? There were manufacturing taxes as well as there were the taxes on like buying stuff. So if I'm buying whiskey, I need to pay taxes. I am like, wait, I'm not taking whiskey anymore. I'll be going with beer. I'll be drinking beer or some other stuff. No whiskey, right? So there was totally loss for the farmers because farmers used to produce more whiskey. So farmers were producing whiskey. They need to pay tax because they were actually going to sell them. And it was like, wait, no one is taking that, we are making that, we are in the loss, we don't have money, it's our fault, right? It's not our fault. I'm saying it's our fault. The farmers were like, our fault? No, it's not our fault. It's not our fault at all. So we need to rebel. You should take off the taxes from the whiskey. So it was a rebellion by the farmers. Why? Because there were taxes. Why? Because there were taxes on the whiskey. There were taxes on the whiskey. Now our president, our brother President George Washington, what he did was like just he sent the troops and that's it. Like he sent the troops and the troops dealt with the farmers, but the tax over whiskey was not taken off because it was a main source for income for the government. So that's it for political parties and rebellion. So for now, I could say like we are done, almost done with the George Washington stuff, but like it's not the end. But there were different other stuffs going on like French Revolution, right? And that was again different stuff for George Washington. It was like French Revolution, so it was French again against the French government. So it was like let's help French. Like some people were like let's help French, and some were like no, we should not help French. And at the same time, the French was with the war with the British. So lot of stuff going on that time, and there were like different many stuffs going on. The Picnic Treaty also took place during George Washington's time. So basically, by this we know almost major thing what happened in George Washington's era. But if you want to know more about that, watch my next video. That's it from Jishin Desai. We'll meet you next time.